This video will demonstrate a setup for using Reaper as an audio mixer for Google Voice. Reaper needs the assistance of VoiceMeeter. VoiceMeeter allows an ASIO return which goes back out on the VoiceMeeter AUX virtual audio cable. The Google Voice output that I hear on my desktop here comes in on this virtual audio cable. So we're using two virtual audio cables, one for the mumble output and one for the mumble input. VoiceMeeter also allows me to bring in this USB mic that I'm using and another audio source, a line in from the Behringer. Let me go over the Google Voice. I've already set up a call. You have to go into the Google Voice settings here, and you have to make sure they're not on default. It doesn't work that way with this setup. You have to send on a different sound card than the default, or it won't work. The reason for that is I can add desktop audio if I want to send it to the Google Voice call that I'm on. So anyway, for the microphone I'm using the AUX output virtual audio cable. For the speaker I'm using the VoiceMeeter input virtual audio card. I already have a call set up. Called my house. I've set the handset in another room on a radio talk show, and this is what it sounds like.
For the Republicans, because polls ended up showing that's who the American people blamed for shutting down.
And one neat thing about Reaper is it has its own plugins that you can use. So let's go over that real quick. And this is kind of an automatic gain control, so it no matter how much I'm receiving on my Google call, it always maintains minus 17 dB. That allows me a little room to apply an EQ, and we also have a noise filter. So let me turn it back on, and we'll go over the features.
And so the consequences could be very big.
Let's go to the phones and let our listeners join our conversation. We'll go first to Phyllis. She's calling us from Greensboro, North Carolina. Phyllis, you're on the Diane Rehm Show.
Well, good morning, and thank you for taking the call. Everything you're talking about is so interesting to me. I don't know where to start, but my reaction to the debate the other night and listening to Carly, who seemed to come on so strong, and then checking with fact checks, it turns out the rags to riches story of starting as a secretary and making your way to a CEO position was not true. Her father was the dean of the...
Okay, as you could hear, there was some hissing involved with the noise filter when I took it out. And this is a very effective plugin for getting rid of this, the FIR under subtract mode. And this graphic equalizer just helped a little bit with the EQ. You already have a severely limited when you're on a regular phone system call. So you have like 300 to 3K is all you have to work with. So it makes it a little bit challenging, but this does help a little bit. And you may have been able to hear that as I switched the graphic equalizer in and out. We have two meters here. We have the incoming, and this is the outgoing. And my microphone, this is the meter for the Google Voice input. I'll go over my inputs now. I have a USB mic right here, and I've set it so it maintains about minus 3 dB to the Google Voice input. However, I wanted to set any other audio below that so that if I talk, Google Voice has its own automatic gain control, so when something stronger comes in, that will take the predominance of what the caller hears. So let's take a look at this. On my microphone, I have this plug-in, and this controls the voice and limits it to about minus 3 with the controls as you see. This is a very effective, and this plug-in will be in the show notes on how to get it. And it's a free plug-in, and it goes right into the Reaper, and where the rest of the JS plugins are located. It's just a file you copy paste and and you place it in there, and Reaper will automatically find it. So for the line input, I have another audio source from the Behringer.
It runs just as smoothly. It is wonderfully, memorably interesting.
So as you can see, it maintained about -15. And same thing for the desktop audio. I have a media file playing.
Should be approached in that fashion, and maybe the technical restrictions should be modified to be more beneficial, to fill in the radio homogenization that's taken place as a result of the
So that's going to the Google Voice input at about -15, and as you can see, my voice still maintains about -3. So this allows me to share audio file with a Google Voice caller, and when I speak, if you're going to make commentary during the listening, it allows your voice to voice over the other media that's playing so that your caller can hear it. And you can lower this enough too so when the caller is talking to you, you can hear them over the media playing. And we set all the volumes on top so that they maintain a steady input at a desired volume level to the Google Voice input. We don't change these once they're set, but we do duplicate the tracks. We use a send command, add new send, and I've duplicated the tracks just so I can monitor that volume. That allows me to change the volume that I hear without affecting how much goes to the Google Voice input. So we've done that here, so I'll turn USB on.
And how you solve them. That was already in the game early on.
And I've lowered it, my monitor USB line, M stands for monitor here, and yet over here we're still without me talking, it's still -15. And when I do talk, you can see that I go up quite a bit above the audio. So that's an example of.
What you see and what I've talked
so
about
I only need to hear just enough so I can understand what's going on, and I can still hear the caller.
So it's really interesting to see that sort of wear and tear, these little bits of proof of humanity and of chaos.
So if they talk up, I could hear them just fine.
And the look is really, the trailer gives a hint of that, but there is definitely also about Monument Valley.
And same thing for desktop audio.
Well, you're dealing with coded audio. You're dealing with audio where an encoder is going to try to pull out audio that doesn't need to be encoded. So if you process this with a smashed up against the top clipper, like you have with
that's a nice volume for me to hear it.
With AM and FM, you can do upwards of 10 dB of clipping, and it doesn't sound that bad.
And yeah, I think you get the idea here. Now I have a test tone. Reaper is set up in exclusive mode at the fastest and lowest latency that I can get. And for my laptop computer here is using a Realtek HD audio sound card. It's about 160 buffers at 48K that I'm using. I've set all my sound cards for 48K. Now let's take a look at VoiceMeeter. VoiceMeeter is using the reroute ASIO driver. So there's a direct relationship between the input hardware and the two virtual inputs to the numbers that are on the reroute ASIO driver. So just to take a look, the first track we have with a hardware input is the microphone, USB microphone. And because we set that up in the menu, so this patch composite controls the inputs. We have 4 stereo inputs that we can use. So we're telling it that for reroute ASIO driver, channel 1 and 2, we want to use the VoiceMeeter input on 2, left and right, which is right here. Same thing for 3. This would be reroute ASIO drivers 3 and 4. And that goes to the third input. Now the VoiceMeeter VAIO virtual audio card is number 4. And we have that in the reroute ASIO driver channel 5 and 6. And the VoiceMeeter AUX, which is the Google Voice input, we have set, that's number 5, we have set as reroute ASIO 7 and 8. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that's all 4 stereo channels. We have the system settings here on VoiceMeeter set for WDM and kernel streaming at lowest possible. My Realtek won't operate at 128, so it does operate at 160. We're using WAS API exclusive mode on VoiceMeeter. That's a yes. And he has an interesting additional mode, Swift mode, that gives extra low latency. So you get a lower latency this way. So that's how we match up the reroute ASIO driver. We have this in composite mode on this first A1 channel out because we want to split up the channels, and that's what that composite does. Now this first input on VoiceMeeter is the ASIO return. Let's go over that. The ASIO return has, on the 3 hardware inputs, you can determine what reroute ASIO channels this will connect to. So reroute ASIO 1 is right here, first channel. Now if I wanted reroute ASIO to come back as a ASIO return on another channel, you just change the numbers here. But I just want it on the first one. So we could actually do this and just leave them all blank. There we go. So that's the ASIO return. So when I tell in Reaper to send any audio track to reroute ASIO channel 1 and 2, it comes back to VoiceMeeter, and because I have the B2 button checked, anything that comes in this input, which is the ASIO return from Reaper, will go out B2, which is the VoiceMeeter AUX. And that's the virtual audio cable I have, VoiceMeeter AUX, as the microphone on this Google dialer here, this settings, the Google Voice dialer. That's all from Hangouts. I just unpinned this so I could do this video. So let's go over how to get any track in Reaper to come to VoiceMeeter's hardware input so that we can send it out B2 to the VoiceMeeter AUX. So the test tone, just one way that I check volumes, that's using the Realtek's own mic. Now for voice, this mic is terrible, but for a test tone it does just fine. So we are going to send it to another track so I can monitor how loud I want that test tone to be. So that's a Realtek mic M for monitor. So I just added a new send after you create the track and you call it a certain name. Then as you click in here, you can choose the name of that new track, and that will send the audio from this track to the second track. You have to take it off of master so you don't duplicate volumes going to your own sound card. So I'm only going to listen on the second track as far as my own monitor. Now this is how we send it to VoiceMeeter. Add new hardware output and select reroute 1, reroute 2 for any audio you want to send to the Google Voice input. I've already done that. Then you can set the volumes on a meter like this right here so that it maintains a certain volume. Now the test tone is easy because it doesn't vary. So that's -15. So I just adjusted this slider here, and it turned out it was minus 14.85 to get the minus 15 over here. And these are just some numbers that I'm using. You can experiment and you may come up with some different ones. So that's the test tone. Now for the USB microphone, we're leaving everything at 0. We've selected that additional hardware out, reroute 1 and 2. So now it's going to go to the Google Voice input from my USB mic. Now I don't want to monitor the mic myself from this track, so I took it off of master and made a new track, added a new send. There it is, USB mic M monitor. Which is right here, right there. So we can take it up, take it down. I'm just leaving it right about there. If you double click it, it goes right back to 0 dB. So that's how, if you wanted to monitor your own voice or not, you just take it down. If you didn't want to hear your own voice while you're talking to your caller. But I find it's helpful because you can pick up just a little bit, and the latency is low enough. There's barely a noticeable delay, and you get used to the delay that is there. But you can hear how you sound and adjust your microphone. And if you've got a nice microphone anyway, mine busted, so I'm using a microphone that I have to hold, so that's why I'm monitoring it, so I can maintain a certain fidelity and clarity. Alright, that's the USB mic. Now we have the line input.
Ready? It's not over.
So again, we've set this to -6 on the reroute because we want it to go to the Google Voice input. So we have reroute 1 and 2 selected. We've sent it to the USB line M, capital M for monitor. We took it off of master because I don't want to monitor what's coming in from this track. Now we also have a plugin that's very helpful. Right here. And it's just an automatic gain control. So if I turn it back on.
It's your money. So whether you've got millions or you're just starting out, visit.
So one thing about voice and speech is you want to be able to hear it. And with speech it goes up and down in volume. And the idea on this is to keep the volume at a certain level and always keep it clear so people can understand it. But you want to be able to set the volumes as such so that you can always hear it, no matter if the person talks softly or screams, so it doesn't change the Google Voice's own gain control system that it's using. So this helps maintain a certain level. Now even though this is at -15, I found that I had to add that another -6 dB right there on this slider, and it gave me about -15. And the same thing for the desktop audio. We have reroute 1, reroute 2 selected, again at -6. And those are the additional, coming from the desktop audio, the additional source inputs to the Google Voice input and the USB line input. So I have a Behringer USB sound card, and this is sometimes very helpful. You've got audio files, like I like to listen to some theological tapes, and my dad's a theologian, so once in a while we'll go over what somebody else says. And it's nice to be able to play the audio, share it with my father, and as we both talk about it, and I can pause the media file at any time. We can discuss as we go. But that makes it very useful if you wanted to share an audio file over the Google Voice call. And now we're just into the monitors. So I have the record disabled. Don't need to monitor the input. Now up here you do have to right click on and arm the track and click Monitor Input. So all these are audio sources are coming in. And if you click it once,
does not make policy decisions.
It arms it, and then the audio plays. And if you don't want that audio, you just click it again and it goes dark and the audio stops coming through the system. And this is the Google Voice call. We've already gone over this one. We've shown the effectiveness of getting rid of some of that hiss and the background hiss and noise using the Reaper and the subtract mode. We have a limiter, automatic gain control to -17, so that we can use some graphic equalizers. As you can see, I'm 10 dBs on the higher point, 12 dBs increase in volume at certain frequencies. And you can't do much with that limited over the phone audio quality, but it does help a little bit, I think. So that's routing to and from Google Voice. Of course, Reaper already comes with a record button, so you can record the call as well. You can record it all as one track from the master or each individual track. So this is not a recording tutorial, but it's pretty easy. Reaper is a very user-friendly, just like anything, it's a little bit of a learning curve if you want to learn how to record with this. But it's a great software. And without VoiceMeeter, this wouldn't be possible because we need those two virtual audio cables, one just for the mumble input, for the Google Voice input, and one just for the Google Voice output. Here's the drivers. And we're using Reroute ASIO. Now, VoiceMeeter requires the 32-bit Reaper for you to install the Reroute ASIO driver. That is an option that you have to select, because it comes as default, not install it. So you have to go in, as you install Reaper, you go into that one of the GUIs that come up and ask you additional software. You click the plus button, scroll down, and there will be the Reroute ASIO driver. Make sure to click that. So I have installed both 32 and 64-bit Reapers, and when the 32-bit Reroute ASIO driver installs, then VoiceMeeter will recognize it. So I am using 64-bit Reaper, and so it is working just fine. But I had to install 32-bit Reaper to get the Reroute ASIO driver to show up in VoiceMeeter. Now, VoiceMeeter also has two other hardware outputs, so if you wanted to dedicate a secondary stream, you can choose any other sound card on your system, and it even has an additional one. So you can have two more outputs if you wanted to. So composite mode, we have B2 selected. That's one of the most important things in hardware input 2. So just as a review, any track in Reaper, if you want the audio to go to Google Voice input, to that virtual AUX, VoiceMeeter AUX virtual audio cable, then you have to make sure you select Reroute 1 and Reroute 2 ASIO drivers. Then the output of this track will go over here to this ASIO input, Reroute 1 and 2. And I watch the meters here just to make sure it's working. And then I select B2 button here. That sends it out VoiceMeeter AUX, which is the microphone for Google Voice. Now the caller speaking to you, you're going to use the VoiceMeeter input, which is a different virtual audio cable, and it already comes installed when you installed VoiceMeeter Pro, this banana. VoiceMeeter VAIO comes in here, and I have B1 selected so that I can use this meter to see it, VoiceMeeter output. So when the Google Voice audio comes in here, it also goes out to B1. But because it's in composite mode, it also goes out reroute channel 5 and 6, and that's how I can hear it. But it sends it to this virtual audio cable 2, and that's where this breakaway RTA volume control is listening. On the wave in. And it just kind of gives you a general idea how things are going. It's nice to have meters so that when something's not right, you have an immediate idea what's going on as far as if you see something drastically changing on these meters. I found it very helpful. And I think that's just about it. Some of these softwares will be in the show notes in case you're interested. But this particular combo between Reaper, I'm going to open up the options so you can take a look at this exclusive mode, but you won't hear my mic. Be right back. Okay, when you open that up, it turns off the sound engine. But Reaper has really good WAS API exclusive mode behavior. It's one of the best programs that has been able to use the exclusive mode without a ton of glitches, and there's very little audio crackles, even at this lowest latency possible. And I believe that's just about it. A little bit of a software and a little bit of a setup, but once you've set it up, all you have to do is save it and it'll come right back. So both VoiceMeeter and Reaper let you save it. Just come up here, save project as. When you bring it up again, you'll be able to, all these channels will be just like you see it again. Thank you for watching.